Welcome to the first episode of the Uncontrolled podcast, where we question the narrative of the mainstream media, our government, and corporations. This show is designed to create a community for us to apply logic and reason to the information that's being presented to us on a daily basis, and ultimately to think for ourselves and come to our own conclusions and decisions. If you like the show, please make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channels, our podcasting channels, follow us on social media. And, we will be creating some other social media accounts as well as a Discord to kind of combat some of the censorship that's been going on. So I'll keep everybody posted on that. But really, the Discord's going to be a community for us to come together, share thoughts, ideas, articles, just have open discussion about anything related to things that are infringing upon our freedoms and stuff that's really just going on in our country. So stay tuned. I will definitely keep everybody posted for those things. To get started, the first couple of episodes that we're going to do are based around vaccines. Reason being is COVID-19 has definitely shined a light on pharmaceutical companies, vaccine programs, and started making people a little bit skeptical and hesitant, at least with the COVID-19 vaccine. But I see a lot of parallels. People, the objections and the hesitancy that people have regarding the COVID-19 vaccine are the same objections and hesitancy that me and my wife have had for vaccinating our own children with any of the other vaccines that are required for schools. So the first vaccine that we want to focus on today is the MMR. And reason being is we live in New York. And in 2019, New York passed a bill to remove the religious exemption from school required vaccines, primarily because there was a measles outbreak among a religious group in New York City. And first and foremost, that goes against everything that I believe in, everything that I think our founding fathers believe in. They gave us the right to freedom of speech, and freedom of religion, and ultimately it's our God-given right to decide what we do and do not put into our bodies and our kids' bodies. So, laws like that mandates any of those types of things, I think are completely unacceptable, completely against anything that this country stands for, was founded upon. And that's why I want to, start to having these conversations with everybody. So, in doing this, I'm not going to be, drawing upon any other sources but CDC. And that's for the sake of argument. Whether you believe in vaccines and you get vaccines, which is fine, or you don't, right? I want this to be, shown as something from a source that everybody pretty much agrees on, the CDC, where you can find your information. And really what it is questioning these things, right? I read what is going on, what they're saying on this website, and I need clarification. There's a lot of ambiguity. There's a lot of things that don't make sense to me, or questions that I have and say, well, wait a minute, what about this, right? For instance, as we start looking at the website for the MMR vaccine, it goes through to, in the beginning, to say, who should be getting the vaccine, and that's children 12 through 15 months old, which should be getting their first series, and then once again when they're 4 to 6 years of age. I find it pretty interesting that they state right here, this vaccine is only licensed for use in children who are 12 months through 12 years of age. And I find that a little bit ironic, because a couple paragraphs down, it goes to international travelers, and it states that infants 6 through 11 months of age should receive 1 dose of the MMR vaccine. But 2 paragraphs before that, it's saying it's only licensed for children 12 months old to 12 years old. So why would they then go and recommend that a 6 to 11 month old gets the vaccine? Makes absolute no sense to me. It's a question. I think it's logical and reasonable question to ask, that I don't seem to be able to find in here to get answered. So if you disagree or you have a different thought, please leave it in the comments below for sure. And we'll take a look at it. continuing on, they have a section right on the website that right below that section that says who should not get the MMR vaccine, right? And one of the things that really stands out to me is where they say, has a severe allergy to any part of this vaccine, may be advised not to be vaccinated. Well, granted, this vaccine is recommended for 12 months and older to 12 years old, but a lot of vaccines, some of the vaccines are given to kids right when they're born, a couple hours after they're born. And I know they have similar advisories where you shouldn't get it if you have specific allergies to ingredients within the vaccines. And for both of my kids, they've never, like, once they were born, they didn't get tested for allergies, right? So my whole point is anytime a vaccine's been presented to me or it's been, presented to me for my kids, it's always, oh yeah, don't worry, the studies are fine. It's a lot out there. I get my kids vaccinated. You should just do it. But nowhere do they immediately say, yeah, by the way, Riley, if your kid is allergic to anything within the vaccine, we might not advise for them to be vaccinated because of potential risk and harm that could be caused to them. Because if it was presented to be that way, I would take a step back and I go, well, wait a minute. Let's, give me a list of what's in the vaccine, right? Then let's go and get them tested to see if they're allergic to any of those ingredients. To me, that's just logical. I don't know why I would put that in my kid's body without doing those tests, first and foremost. So I find that really odd that they have that in there, just like any other pill that's subscribed, right? But we just don't really talk about it or really go get any tests for it. Another section on the website states that, who does not need the MMR vaccine? And this one, I pretty much just started laughing immediately. It goes through to say, well, if you've had one vaccine or two vaccines, you don't, you're immune to it, right? Because it's really saying if you meet any of these criteria for presumptive evidence of immunity, right? So they're saying if you've gotten a couple vaccines, you should be immune to it. Laboratory confirmations, you should be immune to it. Or, get this one, if you were born before 1957, right? So I'm like, okay, well, let's look at the footnotes because it has two asterisks next to it. Let's look at the footnotes and figure out what this is. So in the footnotes, it says verbatim, birth before 1957 provides only presumptive evidence for measles, mumps, and rubella. Before vaccines were available, nearly everyone was infected with measles, mumps, and rubella viruses during childhood. The majority of people born before 1957 are likely to have been infected naturally and therefore are presumed to be protected against measles, mumps, and rubella. So let me repeat that again. They are likely to have been infected naturally and therefore are presumed to be protected against measles, mumps, and rubella. So what does that tell me? Well, it tells me that, once again, here's another vaccine where it's not the only way, right? You can get natural immunity by contracting the virus, building up antibodies naturally, and then you're immune to it, right? So I kind of found that funny that, you do not need the vaccine if you've already had the vaccine or you were born before 1957 because you're probably already immune to it naturally, right? Next section, they show how well does the MMR vaccine work, right? So it goes on to say, well, one dose of the vaccine is 93% effective against measles, 78% effective against mumps, and 97% effective against rubella. Additionally, they say that 2 doses of the MMR vaccine now are 97% effective against measles, 88% effective against the mumps, and it doesn't even give one for rubella on that one for the double dose. But another paragraph below that, it states, some people who get 2 doses of MMR vaccine may still get measles, mumps, or rubella if they are exposed to the virus that causes these diseases, which just leads me back right to what I was saying in the beginning with COVID-19 vaccine hesitancy, right? People say the same thing. They're like, well, why would I get the vaccine if I can still contract the virus? It doesn't make any sense. Well, here's proof that there's another vaccine that you've been getting, that you've been giving your kids, that if they get it, they can still contract the virus. So why are you so willing to just say, let me give them the MMR vaccine, but not the COVID-19 vaccine, right? That's just something I always kind of found ironic with this whole thing. Next, they go on to say, experts aren't sure why. Imagine that. So experts are not sure why people who get fully vaccinated for MMR can still get and contract the viruses. And we're talking about something that's been out since, I think, the 1950s and 60s, late 50s, early 60s for this vaccine. We've had just about 80 years for them to do research and studies on, and they still can't understand why the vaccine is not 100% effective on everybody, right? So, point being, you get it, you get the vaccine, you can still contract the virus. And that's just a main point of hesitancy for people with the COVID-19 vaccine, right? Next point they make is about 3 out of 100 people, so 3%, who get 2 doses of the MMR vaccine will get measles if exposed to the virus, right? So that's pretty decent. I mean, it's pretty low, right? 3%. But what I'm curious to know is, what are the statistics for if you're naturally immune? Is it better? Like maybe naturally immune people to it only have a 2% chance instead of a 3% chance of contracting the virus again once they become immune by it. So to me, that's a question that I certainly have for this. But of course, they're not addressing that in here, right? Next section was the best because now we get into what is the MMR vaccine, and specifically there's a link right below it, and it says vaccine safety, measles, mumps, rubella, and varicella vaccine, right? So I'm clicking on this to go, okay, let me look at the vaccine safety information. And for those of you not watching, I'm clicking it on the screen on YouTube here, and of course it says, oops, we can't seem to find the page you're looking for. Of course not. You want to talk about safety about the vaccine? Why would we show you the page for it, right? It's going to be an error. So I found that pretty comical. Moving on to the next section for this is, what are the child care and school requirements for the MMR vaccine? Now, I bring this up because everybody in these states, specifically all these people that are hesitant against the COVID-19 vaccine that get all the other vaccines, they're sitting there saying things like, you can't force vaccines on our kids. You can't mandate these things for them to go to school. You have politicians saying that, we're going to maintain the parents' right to choose in our states and everything, and we're not going to force them to put things in their kid's body that they don't want to put into it. But yet, we've been doing it for years and years and years and years. So it says right on here, all 50 states and the District of Columbia have state laws that require children entering childcare or public schools to have certain vaccination. There's no federal law that requires this, right? So I'm just using this as an example to open up some people's eyes, not to try to change their viewpoints, right? But just to get them to be a little bit open-minded with things, because, you say you can't mandate something, but it's already being mandated. It's already being required in schools. I can't even send my kids to school in New York State because of these types of things, because I don't vaccinate them with other vaccines, right? Which we're actually going to be moving out of state here pretty soon. But point being is, they've already done it. They've already been doing it. You've already been buying into it. And this is exactly why you don't give up freedoms. You don't give up people's rights to choose what they think is best for their family and themselves. Because when something comes along that you don't agree with, guess what? You have to follow the law because you helped pass that law. And it's very hard to overturn those things. So case in point, I think I made my point on that. Once we go down to the bottom, there's education materials. And, since MMR takes care of a couple different, the MMR vaccine takes care of a couple different viruses, they have listed measles, mumps, rubella. I'm only going to go through the measles one because all the other ones are pretty much the same. They have pretty mild symptoms and everything, so it gets pretty repetitive. But once we click on the CDC fact sheets for parents, measles in English, right? It brings us up to the page measles in English, right? It brings us up to the page where it goes, why should my child get the MMR? Well, it protects your child from the measles and potentially a potentially serious disease, as well as mumps and rubella. Also, it protects your child from getting an uncomfortable rash and high fever from measles. Okay. This one is pretty funny. Keeps your child from missing school or childcare and you from missing work. Let me tell you something. The last thing I'm thinking about or that I care about is my kid misses a little bit of school or I miss a little bit of work because of something. I want to know what's in this vaccine. What's the difference between, what's the risk of not getting vaccinated? I want to know these things. I don't care about missing work, right? So it's pretty funny that that's like a benefit. Ooh, hey, by the way, you might not miss work if they get the shot. I find it pretty comical. Next section they go into is what are the side effects of the shot? So pretty mild side effects for the most part, right? Soreness, fever, mild rash, temporary pain and stiffness in the joints. They do have a section in there that says, more serious side effects are rare. Those may include high fever and could cause a seizure. But I think that that's kind of strange, seeing how when you get to the sections where right below it says, what is the measles? Measles is a serious respiratory disease. It causes a rash and fever. Okay, so if you catch the measles, you might get a rash and a fever, and if you get the vaccine, you might get a rash and a fever, apparently, right? So it also says it's very contagious, and in rare cases, it can be deadly, right? But what are those rare cases? That's another thing that, people are hesitant with the COVID-19 vaccine. They're saying, well, geez, the chances of dying from it or being severely ill are pretty much slim to none. So why don't I just risk getting it naturally and building up natural immunity? You can say the same thing about the MMR with the measles. In rare cases, it can be deadly. Okay, great. That's awesome. How about you be a little bit more specific? What's the data that they have upon this, right? Like, what are the percentages and the studies that you've seen of how deadly it can be? First and foremost, I would like to know if I'm around the measles, mumps, rubella, how often, what are the chances of me even contracting it in the first place, right? Second off, if I do contract it, what are the chances of me getting severely ill or dying from it? Because those are, if it's like 0.033%, there's worse things in life. You're going to get hit by a bus before that, right? In my opinion. So I always look for more information, not these vague, very ambiguous things like, oh, in rare cases, it can be deadly. Okay, great. How deadly and how often are those cases, right? Next section goes into what are the symptoms of the measles? Well, cough, runny nose, and red eyes, rash of tiny red spots, diarrhea, and an ear infection. So, once again, what's the percentage? If you get the measles, how many kids or adults are just going to have these symptoms, right? And then build up immunity naturally. Is it really worth getting something injected into my body so that I cannot have a cough, a tiny red rash, diarrhea, or an ear infection? Not in my opinion, right? So I would like to know, what are the, is it 95% of people that get the measles have this, or only 20% and 80% are deadly, right? They just don't say anything like that. Next section they go is measles serious? And it says, measles can be dangerous, right? Like, let's look at that for a minute. Can be dangerous, not measles is dangerous, or measles is guaranteed to be dangerous. No, it's measles can be dangerous, right? Especially for babies and young children. Another very vague, ambiguous term. Well, how dangerous can it be? Well, they go on to say it can do, pneumonia, lifelong brain damage, deafness, death. Obviously, everybody can agree those are not ideal, right? But what are the chances of those? Look at some odds of being in a car accident. I know it sounds stupid, but look at the odds of being in a car accident versus some of the statistics that you can find on what the chances are of contracting something and have something severely ill, right? So I thought that was a funny section in there too. And to kind of wrap it up here, I'm going back to the original page here on the CDC. I found this really funny is, when we tried to look at the vaccine safety, right, it went to, whoops, there's an error, right? Now, if I click on the link at the bottom, CDC, featured stories, what would happen if we stop vaccinations? Curious to see. Well, when I click on that, it just brings me to a vaccines and immunizations page. It just says, hey, here's your 2022 immunization schedule. And here's children birth to 18 years old. It doesn't even give any information on it. Unless I'm missing something, leave it in the comments below if somebody found something on this. But it literally, I clicked on a link that says, what would happen if we stop vaccination? They don't say anything about what would happen if we stop vaccination. So I find that a little funny and ironic. And it's funny and ironic because I understand things happen on, websites and things are down and all these types of things. But it's just really, I don't believe in things being super random. It's really funny and ironic that, you go to look at the main points of anything that could go against it, the safety of it or go against vaccines. And it's just like, whoops, there's nothing there. There's no information. Just kidding. Click the link. You're not getting what you want. It's craziness. Also, questions and answers section at the bottom. Immunization Action Coalition, right? When I click the first one, PDF, it says measles. And what pops up right when I click it? Links with this icon indicate that you are leaving the CDC website. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention cannot attest to the accuracy of non-federal website. Linking to a non-federal website does not constitute an endorsement by the CDC or any of its employees of the sponsors or the information and products presented on the website. Then why the hell would you put it at the bottom of your website where you're trying to educate people, parents, of vaccines and the benefits and the safety of it? If you can't verify and endorse any of the statements that you're linking, that you're putting in a link, right, because it's a third-party link, then why is it under your page? It makes absolutely no sense to me. So for all I know, I can click on that and it could be complete and utter bullshit is what it could be. And they're trying to not take liability for anything. So if you're not trying to take liability for it, don't even put it on there as a informational piece to your website, right? It also goes on to say you will be subject to destination's website privacy policy. CDC is not responsible for Section 508 compliance on other federal or private websites, right? So point being is I find it a little bit strange that you're putting information on a site for parents and people to get educated on vaccine safety, who should get vaccines, when you should get them, why you should get them, and then put up disclaimers saying some of the information on this site can't be endorsed by the CDC, right? So I don't know. It's just a little bit fishy to me. Put your thoughts in the comments. Leave it below. Once again, this is the first episode that we're doing. I'm going to continue with the next couple of episodes doing things on specific vaccines here on the CDC's website. Future episodes beyond that are definitely going to be geared toward anything that's facing our nation, in our country at the time, that is infringing upon our rights or is being kind of sold as a bill of goods, right? There's a lot of attention around something, and we want to kind of comb through it and figure it out on our own and kind of look at things. So, once again, this is about questioning. You should be questioning. I think it was Benjamin Franklin who told everybody that as an American citizen, it's your duty to always question authority, right? You should be questioning what the news is putting out, what the government's putting out, and what the corporations, not because you want to be rebellious, but because you need to put people in check, right? I don't understand right now how we have elected officials in positions of power in office that are supposed to be there for the public's interest and our best interest, right? How they can be a part of companies and own companies and make money off of policies and procedures that are put in place in this country. That is a direct conflict of interest, okay? You should not be making recommendations about health care for the American public when you make money off of different medical procedures, drugs, whatever it is, that are sold by a company that you're either a shareholder in or that you own or you're a board member of. It just makes absolute no sense to me. So I say where there's smoke, there's fire. I call bullshit on the whole thing. And, you know, that's just my opinion on it. But everything that we went through today is directly written on the CDC's website. And once again, I did that because it's considered a credible source across, you know, pretty much everybody's school of thought, right? So this should be the place where there's no debate. This is on the CDC's website, right? So as I said before, we'll be coming out with other material later on. We'll be coming out with other social media platforms and the Discord channel, and to talk about topics when our rights are being infringed, when bills are being passed that could infringe upon our rights, which is some social issues that really are affecting people. You know, anything that goes against this Constitution, goes against our freedom, that could be causing us to potentially be restricted and lose our liberties. That's what we're going to be discussing on here. So if you like it, hope you stick around. Hope you watch the next episodes, listen to the next episodes, subscribe to our channels, like us on social media, and feel free to leave any comments in below. So thank you for watching, and until next time, we'll see you.